Great.
Hey everyone, Sean Maloney, Digital Business Masters. Welcome to another PLCU Back to Basics workshop. Okay, these workshops we're running now for around 4 months. As soon as we figured out that there was a need for a legacy community, which is what we're focused on right now, to get back into gear and to utilize assets they already own and they've been accumulating over the past 2 years since early 2022. As soon as we realized that, we started to put more focus onto these back to basics sessions alongside the strategy calls. So 4 times a week, people are involved either on the basic side. If you're here for the first time at DBM listening to this, with that regard, then you're very, very welcome. And on top of this, we have a sister call, which is a strategy call, which is much deeper, much more analytical, much more into the numbers. And when we combine those two things together, we've now got hundreds of people back into income, using existing assets that they acquired over many years. So this is the key. And what I want to do today is just to go through some high-level thinking as to why that's important, and then get into the detail in 4 simple steps as to how you can take legacy assets, PLC X, C, U, whatever you've got, push them through into this blockchain, and then start to achieve reliable asset cash flow. If that's your goal, you're in the right place. Now, why? What's all this about at the highest level? Well, let's just have a quick reminder. It's very easy to get into the turmoil and the opinions and the emotions of all the people that exist inside the internet space. Everybody's got an opinion. But at the end of the day, you just got to keep rising above the canopy and thinking about why you're here. Now, oftentimes, that is best served by you just taking a sense check of exactly how you managed to get to where you are today in your life on the basics of the current fiat system, F-I-A-T. Think about it at that level, and then whatever is going on as you make decisions to try and extricate yourself from 100% reliance on bosses, banks, and governments, as that becomes a painful process, which it will, as it becomes a challenging and emotional process, which it will. If you keep flying up above the canopy and thinking about this infographic, then you're going to find life a lot easier as you make the decisions you have to make to have the fortitude and resilience to finish what you start. And it's all to do with the ownership of assets as opposed to continually chasing fiat currency, dollars, euros, pounds, whatever. Okay? The definition of insanity last time I looked is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. If you've been working through your decades of life and not understanding why your purchasing power keeps eroding, then maybe it's time to understand that you need to own assets. We just happen to utilize, as part of the DBM business model, we just happen to use digital assets because they're the most effective when used properly. Using properly is the hard bit. There's plenty of projects out there that will profess to be the silver bullet, the only thing you should be doing. They've cracked the holy grail. No, they've not. Not one project in this space has done that. But what we do have is a multitude of different ways in which combined it becomes a solution. And you do that by putting assets to work inside cash flowing activities. I'll come back to that shortly. Once you've got that mastered, then you're able to take control of either re-leveraging those assets, either through collateralization or leverage. Often it could be the same thing, or you siphon off back in to USDT. And for the first time in human history, we're able on the internet to earn in US dollar equivalents. And if you don't understand the importance of that, then again, go back to monetary history, go to the where to start section of the academy, have a look at the hidden secrets of money, read books like the Creature from Jekyll Island, etc., and understand just how powerful the US dollar will continue to be, and your need to own that currency. Okay, not specifically the US dollar, but certainly the equivalents of the US dollar in USDT or USDC. Very, very important. And then you reallocate proportions of what is ultimately a declining, devaluing currency into assets that increase in price, not necessarily value, but price the more people acquire them. You then use the equity, the balance sheet, to push into more cash flow creating entities and repeat the cycle. So what we look for at DBM continually are projects and platforms that allow us to do just that. And in essence, that is what PLCU is, okay? On a retail level. Its utility is a retail business model. I'll speak about that in a minute. What does that mean? Well, again, if you've done the blockchain assets course at DBM, you'll find a link to that around this recording. Then we go into great detail about the differences between the traditional finance space and the decentralized, or DeFi space. So what I've alluded to already is over here on the left-hand side, the hegemony, the intermediaries, the sheer number of people that are between your effort and energy as a consumer, saver, employed person predominantly, 95% of people, and who stands between you and the value. Well, the value never gets discovered because there's so many people taking a little cut of your energy and skill and effort every single day. And that manifests itself as inflation, a hidden tax. So we know this is the issue. Officially, the system collapsed in 2008. It's been on life support ever since, and arguably resetting itself ever since as they move closer and closer to what I call central bank digital currencies. It's a whole different topic for another day. What have we done in the meantime? Well, as I said, we've ascertained that we need to own assets, land, physical metals, property, Bitcoin. And we've figured out with the ownership of those types of assets that over time, equity is created because the price of those said assets increase. So that's a big start to the bottom right-hand side of that trifecta. But it isn't enough. Because you can't live your life off a balance sheet. You can't build a business purely off a balance sheet. That's where the value lives, the equity lives. What you have to do is proportionally allocate some of those assets into cash flowing entities. And cash flowing entities only exist when you're providing value to the world. That's what businesses do. So what if you as an employed consumer saver could take an ownership position inside a mutable blockchain super system that allowed people to put in devaluing currency, convert it into a limited asset class, and then utilize that asset class in perpetuity to create access points to spending power? And what if that asset class was closed inside its own cycle, its own loop, that meant that it became more and more scarce and more in demand? And what if more and more people were putting demand onto that said asset that created equity in and of itself that allowed you to continually increase the amount of purchasing power you own? What would that be? Would that be the gold standard? All PLCU is doing is creating that in and of itself, whether you understand that or not, whatever your opinion is of that or not. It's just basic economics. But doing that in a retail environment with millions of people, all with their own interests and opinions and abilities and skill levels, is a challenge. So you end up with a journey. And that's the journey we're on. But it doesn't take away the overarching and overriding need for individuals to take ownership of assets and continually repeat the purchasing abilities of those assets inside a closed loop system, aka the gold standard. So then you're left with the challenge. Even if people do start to do that, there is still a huge tendency for people to confuse two very different things. The earning of income, which is what most people do in a job, and then the immediate spending of that income. In other words, what they've exchanged skill and time for, often known as a wage, the immediate spending of that to buy liabilities. And just keep repeating that month after month after month after month for 40, 50 years, God willing. That's where the vast majority of people, that's the limit of their financial education. Because they've never been taught that what you really do is you take your same skill and effort and energy. Of course, you need to create income, but you allocate that through assets into cash flowing systems that allow you to create a benefit, normally through supply and demand, whereby the price of the asset increases, in other words, equity, that gives you the ability to fund liabilities. And that is the crux of what we're doing inside the blockchain, full stop. All PLCU does is refine that down to a very, very small version of that same requirement. And our job, part of our job, is to help as many people as possible, especially if they've started this process, but not fully understood why they started it. They may have got involved with a 50 grand coin and got all excited about some marketing promises or stage work or somebody incentivizing to do something they didn't really want to do, and they did it because everyone else was doing it. Move people from that mindset into the mindset of, if they own the assets now, keep moving and make sure you finish the job by helping as many people as possible understand this bottom section, because the more people that understand it and utilize the asset, what do you think happens to the asset price? And is that not what you're here for? So is it in your interest to walk away and get emotional and castigate and blame and push and shove and moan? Or is it in your interest to look after the assets you spent your hard-earned money on 3 years ago, 2 years ago? What is in your interests? And what's stopping you from creating a tokenomic system whereby everybody helps each other? What's stopping you? Is it a mindset thing? Is it a skill thing? Is it an emotional thing? Only you can answer that. But there is plenty of support and assistance for you to move back into gear and put your assets back to work. It's very, very simple. A very striking image. How many PLCU? So let's go back a year. How many PLCU do you own? How many PLCU X or C? It doesn't really matter. Does this mathematics make sense? Do you know where this mathematics has come from? Do you realize how much time and effort and cash you've been leaving on the table for the past 8 months because you've not done this maths? Are you still in a position where you're not happy that you've got enough income coming into your life, yet you're set on potentially hundreds of thousands of an asset that could push you into a place that you originally wanted to get to? Is it getting you there as fast as you wanted? Was it a magic money tree? Was the coin always going to be 50,000? Was it going to be easy to continually just take an advantage of a market that was chasing a price? Did you really think that? Or was it a case you need to relook at yourself and say, no, I took a decision. I'm a grown adult. I need to keep that moving and push now into position to finish this job. If I do my little piece in that, everybody else, including me, will get the benefit of our conjoined effort. Is that not how it should be? Only you can answer that. Question where you are with your assets. Do a stock take. Go back into your phones, go back into your devices, go back into your laptop, have a look at where you're at with your farms, with your assets, where they are. All the websites are still open. Your job is to follow 4 simple steps. Once you've ascertained what you've got in legacy assets, follow 4 simple steps. Take a screen grab of this, have a look at exactly what it is that you need to do with the 4 websites involved. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're concerned that there's too many websites, too hard to think about, there's too much to think about, not really. Go to ultimatebusiness.com, go back to the person out of courtesy who brought you into this project in the first place. If they're asleep at the wheel, find the person above them. If they're asleep at the wheel, reach out to someone who cares. Reach out to someone who's going to help you to finish what you started. Get your link from ultimatebusiness.com. Top right-hand corner under my account, you'll find all these websites. 1, 2, 3. Swapping, the DeFi, Global Ultimate Stocks, all in one place. It's just a skill. It's just a need for you to understand how to run your Ultimate machine. All the websites are on here separately anyway for your convenience. Do a stock take. Do a very simple stock take. Spend an afternoon assessing what you've got in legacy asset terms and move them over to plcswapping.com. Move them there and put them on the 5-year plan. Okay? PLCUX will only be a 3-year plan. Everything else put on the 5-year plan. Okay, if you don't understand that, come into these workshops, come into the strategy calls, reach out to us in the workspaces at DBM, and we'll explain the difference in detail. In this little green box here, don't neglect the fact that you've probably got a significant amount of PLCU frozen in PLCU C form, and that will be on plcultima.com. Get over there and do a stock take there as well, and start to bring out 1% a day of the PLCU that you've got over on plcultima.com. Start bringing it out. Make it a daily routine, a DMO, part of your job of responsibility for a decision you made 2 years ago. Be responsible. For every PLCU you bring back into this system, you're going to get 1 million smart. Again, go back to the mathematics. That's your starting point. Step 2, once you've got your legacy assets, that's how you enter the system. Now, very important. Once you've got yourself in a position whereby you've got your assets back into cash flow again, releasing at 10% a day, then from Smart, then you're going to be able to make some decisions to utilize some of the asset base. That's why there is absolutely no new fresh money you have to put into this system at all. In fact, we suggest and recommend you do not put any fresh money in if you've got legacy assets. Do not do that. Just use the legacy assets and get the ball rolling. So don't make the excuse that, oh, I don't want to put new money in. That's just an excuse. You've got legacy assets. Your job is to put them back in the system and put them back to work. It's very easy to do by simply utilizing Smart on the open market. There's plenty of liquidity, and move a proportion of that across to Ultima. Go to Smart, MEXC, sell the Smart for dollars, buy Ultima with the dollars. Very simple. Again, if you need help with that and support with that, come to these workshops and we'll go through it with you. I'll go to the workspaces in the DBM Academy. Crucially, you're going to utilize that Ultima then to do the bit that's important. Do you remember on the trifecta, we were talking about cash flowing assets, putting them into closed loop systems that make sure you're continually bringing an asset into your life every single day? Well, that's exactly what we're doing with what are called splits. They're just liquidity pools. There's nothing necessarily clever about them. They're just very powerful when they run properly. And these are running very, very well. They've been running now for over 8 months. Not missed a beat. Not missed a beat. Every single day, we're able to press a button and get access to our assets. We're utilizing those assets. We're creating a system of perpetual asset recycling, crucially, that's fully liquid. And it's only liquid because of the activity of the DLPs, the pools. It's the only reason. Because by definition, assets are being taken off the market, held inside pools, and we're dripping out at a controlled basis every single day. That's the only way you can do it. Otherwise, people just destroy these projects by selling assets too aggressively. You've got to put them into a controlled mechanism. That's what you do at DeFiU.com. Okay, that's the crucial aspect. That's the bit that is so important to understand when it comes to this creating cash flow element. Very, very important. You can't build a lifestyle, you can't build a business just off a balance sheet. If people are telling you you can buy spurious coins and tokens out there and just try and get lucky every month, buying them low and selling them high, you will not be able to run a business like that. You have to put a portion of your assets to work in cash flowing entities that are globally interconnected with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. That's what DLPs are. That's what step 3 is. Now, once you've got that to a critical mass of a point where it's coming to you at a certain rate, which has never been easy now because what we call the gold pools and the business pools are very stable, very, very stable. It's easy to predict the growth, the global issuance. It's easy to predict your proportional ownership inside of that. And it's easy to predict how much Ultima you're going to bring into your life every single month. Very, very easy. If you want to know more about that, comes to the strategy calls. The final key step is the utility. The whole purpose of this entire structure is step 4, the utility of being able to access discounted vouchers, which is the key aspect of this whole project. All PLCU has done is gone out into the world, into banks, into exchanges, into e-commerce platforms, Amazon, etc., and said, we have a closed, captured market of existing consumers who want to buy your stuff. You give us a discount and we'll send them your way. The only way we as the consumers can access that privilege is through the tokenomics of the model that we've just been talking about. We meet together. That gives us increased and perpetual spending power, especially as more and more people understand and put demand on the ultimate coin. And the market, the retailers, they get to sell their goods and services to a captured market. That's the purpose of this project. Some projects are into sport, some projects are into health, some projects are into solar panel technology, some are into education, some are into gaming, some are into trading. There's a whole multitude of different use cases that exist in the world, as you know. This one is based on retail. And last time I looked, that's what most people want. They want to be able to get out there and live life. Well, you do that through a very clever system whereby you're taking a proportion of your ultimate cash flowing consistent assets and putting them into spending power. And you do that two ways, one of two ways. You either front load. At the moment, we're getting up to 60% in cash back for every single DLP we activate in step 3. We're getting 60% of that back, front loading our spending power. Or we get 50% cash back going forward over time. Either way, you're getting it back. And guess what you're getting it back in? Guess what the cash back comes back in, what form it comes back in. It comes in the form of an asset, Ultima. And if more demand is going on to that asset as more and more people activate themselves into this type of closed loop, what do you think happens to the price of the asset? And what do you think you do next time you go around in allocating a proportion, we call it feeding the goose, of that Ultima, that asset into more and more liquidity pools? Do you think you're getting more and more and more buoyancy and more activity of assets coming into your life every time you press a button? And are you able then to take more of that at a lower cost in real terms, in Ultima terms, into more and more spending power? Is that not what the world needs when it comes to avoiding unfettered inflation? Well, that's exactly what you're looking at here. And you do that through Ultima Store, a distinct website that, again, of course, that's why we're not yet fully endorsing this project, because things have to be completed and closed. But those of you with legacy assets, those of you who've been involved with this project any time since 2022, you have a duty of care to pull yourself into position and get ready for when this whole thing starts to get more and more and more mass adopted. And guess what? The more people helping it become more mass adopted, the bigger and bigger it becomes to be able to fulfill its purpose. It's called tokenomics. Own it, use it, endorse it. Do you get that from your bank? Do you get that from your pension plan? Do you get that from your financial advisor? Of course you don't. You're just going round and round a rat race. Here, you get some influence over what it is for you to create purchasing power to go around the whole thing all over again. So that, in essence, is where this project has always been. It's where it's at today. The only question you have to ask yourself is, if you do own legacy assets, why are they not creating you an income every single month? Is it the project's fault? Is it the coin's fault? Whose fault? You decide. So if that was useful, then pop a comment in the chat. You'll see this out on the DBM channels. And if you feel there's people out there who this may be useful to and can maybe get some insight into how this thing is working, then feel free to share and invite them into dbm.academy/PLCU every single week, 4 times a week. And we'll go through the basics, we'll go through the expert strategy levels, and eventually more and more people realize, whether it's PLCU or not, they just realize the power they have in their own hands to be able to create a difference in their own households, rather than waiting for bossing banks or governments to solve their problems, which, in case you haven't noticed, is never going to happen. So I hope that was useful. Appreciate your time. I'll see you on the next video.